Ready, Ann. Thank you very much. It is Friday, January 17th, 2025. This is a Commissioners' regular meeting. We're live City Hall Commissioners' Room, second floor. I'd like to call this meeting to order at 2:02 p.m. Would you please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We'll start off with roll call. Commissioner Mark Saunders.
Present.
Commissioner Suzanne Good.
Present.
Commissioner Ed Chernowski, absent. Commissioner Patrick Gossett.
Here.
Commissioner Bunky Markert.
Here.
Commissioner Craig Thier.
Here.
Mayor Stan Mills is here. We don't have the full complement, but we do have enough to create a quorum so that we can do formal business today here. I'd like to thank everybody that's watching virtually. I'd also like to thank those of you that are here in person. As you know, if you've frequented these meetings before, we give an opportunity for the public to comment and provide feedback. There is a 3-minute limit per one time per topic. But we also have at the end of the agenda a topic called citizen comment, and that is for topics that are off, topics that are not on the agenda. And again, we request that you have a 3-minute limit. And those that want to speak, just kindly raise your hands, be acknowledged, and come to the front microphone. And we will ask you for your name and relationship to the city. With that, I also want to make note that support documents, those are documents that support our individual agenda items. When they're ready, a sufficient amount in front of the meeting, they are embedded into the agenda on our website. So go to rehoboth.com and look up the meeting date, and you'll be able to see and retrieve our support documents. There is no correspondence received in time to submit. We did get a bit of correspondence from a gentleman, I think Rick Hardy, that I'm sure you'll speak upon, and we want to acknowledge that we got it also. And with that, we're going to move along to approval of the minutes. In front of us, we have 14 sets of minutes. They're all generally short sets of minutes because they're special meetings and executive sessions, but they're 14 set. Are there any corrections to any of the sets in front of us? If not, then what's in front of us is I would entertain a motion to approve the minutes for the executive sessions held on October 7th, 2024, November 4th, 2024, December 19th, 2024, special meetings held on October 20th, 2024, August 23rd, 2024, September 9th, 2024, October 7th, 2024, November 4th, 2024, number 1, and November 4th, 2024, number 2. We had special meetings in the morning and in the afternoon. Also, December 9th, 2024, December 9th, 2024, number 2, December 19th, 2024, January 6th, 2025, and a workshop meeting held on October 5th, 2021. Now, because we do have April 5th, 2021, because we do have an old one, and there's only 2 commissioners here that were even at that meeting, you all are expected to go ahead and vote on that. There's no problem doing so. With that, I would entertain to a motion to approve the 14 sets of minutes in front of us.
I make a motion to approve those 14 sets of minutes. If you need me to read the individual dates.
No.
Okay, then. Up to and including April 24th, I guess, 2021. I make a motion.
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Suzanne Good and a second by Commissioner Mark Saunders to approve the 14 sets of minutes. Is there any discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, and those 14 sets of minutes are now approved. With that, we're going to move right along to the city manager's report.
Thank you, Mayor. Good afternoon, Board of Commissioners, members of the public. You'll receive a project update on the Rehoboth Beach Patrol Facility later in this meeting, but I did want to mention that the city is celebrating completion of the framing of the tallest point of the building at a brief topping ceremony at 1 p.m. this coming Tuesday. So bundle up and meet us on Baltimore Avenue, where a signed piece of sheathing will be installed to represent this construction milestone. We're excited to announce that the city's new website will make its debut on February 12th. The new Rehoboth Beach de.gov website, yes, it will have a new URL, but the other cityofrehoboth.com will also still work. Offers a fresh, modern look and a service-oriented focus, user-friendly design, and an attractive, graphics-driven approach to organization of the city's information. We're really excited to share the new site with community members and all of our digital visitors. Again, look for the new website beginning February 12th. As a reminder, Rehoboth Beach is now accepting public comments related to the city's pedestrian networks as part of its efforts to create an ADA transition plan. Comments may be shared via the ADA Transition Plan project page on Reach Out Rehoboth, which is reachout.cityofrehoboth.com. And we're particularly interested in receiving comments and feedback from individuals with disabilities and organizations that work with people with disabilities. Thank you to all of those that have so far taken time to share their feedback. And this month, a payment of $11,605.04 was made to Delmarva Power for street aid. And I'm here to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions of the city manager? Very good. We'll move right along. Thank you. We'll go to the city solicitor's report. For those that don't know, this is our interim city solicitor, Max Walton.
Usually I don't say anything because I am the interim and my time is drawing near to a close here pretty soon. So I've done quite a bit of work with building and licensing. I've also assisted with the solicitor search and some items with that, and currently working on all the stuff needed for the joint meeting next Thursday. So, and that's pretty much, it's a very lively group you have. So we hear from folks quite a bit. So
We try to keep you busy. Thank you.
that's all, and you do.
Thank you. With that, we're going to move on to departmental reports. As you know, that we solicit information or reports from the police department, alderman court, communications department. They are embedded in the agenda, so we don't need to spend any time on them. However, within that departmental briefing, we have an investment report to give you today. And again, embedded in the agenda is a T-bill earnings summary as of 31st of December 2024. Evan, are you presenting? Bert's presenting.
Currently, the city has, as of the end of December, we had $30 million in treasury bills. It's allocated between our water, our wastewater, and our general fund. They're earning about 4.2%. The bills as matured on December the 26th. We reinvested the money, all the proceeds, principal and interest, and they're invested to mature in about half of them in March and about half of them in June. And they're producing almost the same rates, about 4.2. There's a little more on the 6-month. Any questions?
Any questions, commissioners? If not, we thank you, Bert. With that, our next bit of business is board and commission reports. They've been submitted electronically. They're embedded in the agenda. There are no committee reports. Community partner reports, when they're provided to us, we embed them in the agenda. And we want to thank Carol Everhart is here from the Chamber of Commerce. We have one of your reports that has occupancies and dates and things coming up in there, so that's very useful. Main Street has a report in there. Likewise, they submit future dates and calendar dates that are very helpful. And the public library also has a report in there. So save time. Again, they're embedded there. You can go look at those electronically. With that, we're going to move right along to old business. which is to consider a resolution to reschedule or set a public hearing on the matter of amending Chapter 270 of the Municipal Code by amending Sections 270-4 and 270-21B relating to the definitions of basement, non-habitable basement, habitable basement, crawl space, floor finish, wall finish, gross floor area, and amending the gross floor exemption for qualifying basements and regulating certain existing non-habitable basements. We can go right to a vote. This is to reschedule, reset a public hearing that was originally intended for today, and we couldn't make it happen. Evan, did you want, was anybody going to say anything? Okay, so,
Mayor, may I ask a question?
yes, ma'am.
I just want to know whether there's any consideration to, in the draft resolution here, to grandfather in properties which were constructed before whatever date the resolution passes. That's something I've been asking about, I think, since October.
I'll tell you, I'll look into it. I think just off the top of my head that they would be if they were already constructed, but it's nothing I've looked at, but I can take a look at it. And that, I don't know that it goes into the public hearing resolution, but you could put it in at the actual public hearing, if that makes sense.
I mean, my goal is to try to limit some of the enforcement, which has become a little bit too aggressive, in my view, in looking at properties that may have, modified things after getting like a rental license. I just want to have a more cooperative environment between property owners and like building inspectors, if we could.
Understood. I know what your goal is, and I know what I need to look at for the next meeting, but for this particular one, it's not proper to put it in the public hearing resolution. It's for the actual public hearing, those
Okay,
kind of things.
thank you.
So I would entertain a motion in front of us addressing the resolution. The motion would be worded something like, propose that a public hearing be held on the subject of amending Municipal Code of City of Rehoboth Beach, Sections 270-4 and 270-21B relating to the definitions of basement and the other words here. Such public hearing to be held on 21st of February at 2:00 p.m. Could I entertain a motion and a second?
So moved. Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Patrick Gossett and a second by Commissioner Mark Saunders, proposing that a public hearing be held on the 21st day of February at 2:00 p.m. In the matter of basements before us. Is that all right? Is there any additional discussion here? Is there anybody in the public that would like to say anything? If not, all those in favor of setting a public hearing for this matter of the basements for 21st of February, 2:00 p.m., signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, and the motion's carried. We are now rescheduled for the public hearing for basements. Thank you very much. Thank you, Corey. We got that moving along. With that, we're moving right along. Bob Palmer, status from Beacon Engineering on the proposed replacement for the Lake Gerar Children's Fishing Pier as originally presented by the Village Improvement Association on December 4th, 2023. Go ahead, Bob.
Thank you, Mayor. Board of Commissioners, for the record, my name is Bob Palmer with Beacon Engineering. We're working on behalf of the City of Rehoboth, and we've been working with the Village Improvement Association and their donor for the last 3 years or so to come up with an evolving pier replacement for the Lake Gerar, the existing Lake Gerar fishing pier. Apologize, Mayor. I didn't realize I had control. So I'm ready to go. So this first slide that I have in the presentation is just an aerial overview of the existing fishing pier, and you can see it runs along the It runs parallel with the First Street, with the Lake Gerar Bridge. It's very close to the bridge and really only allows for fishing opportunities on the or screen left, but the westerly side of the pier. And the nexus for this project was that there was a donor that approached the VIA a number of years ago and has very fond memories of escaping other siblings on the pier and hiding out and doing his thing. And over the years, the pier has been maintained by the city, but through board replacement, railing replacement, things of that nature. But over time, the structure itself has begun to list or shift. And so we performed a structural evaluation 3 years ago and documented the pier being out of plumb, the deck board, the decking itself, it's out of square. And we did a very cursory analysis and determined that it was, given the lifespan and the age of the facility, that it would be most likely more environmentally beneficial and less costly to replace the pier than to try to correct the deficiencies that we found. This next slide represents the current evolution of the fishing pier. The fishing pier has this orientation of the fishing pier has always been an octagonal shape. It has ebbed and flowed from multiple fishing platforms further out into the lake, closer to the bridge itself, gazebo, no gazebo. And so this particular rendition is the most recently endorsed plan by the VIA, other workshop discussions with the mayor and commissioners. And it seeks to replace the existing concrete sidewalk gangway that runs from the city's pedestrian network in that park and connecting into the sidewalk on First Street, runs out to the water's edge where the existing pier exists today, and then it turns out into the lake, but is very close to the shoreline, so that the pier itself is not out towards the center of the lake and is more less obtrusive, less of an impact onto the overall viewshed of the lake. The other thing that's important about this design is we're abiding by the city's no-build policy along the shoreline. So this is not a new connection. This is reusing the existing connection that's been there for forever. We did actually talk with a local contractor, and we received actually a quote for the fishing pier in the configuration that you see here, and that budget was just under $210,000. And it's noteworthy that the donor has committed to a $250,000 one-time donation to the VIA. And the intent is that $50,000 of that donation would be put into an escrow and used for ongoing maintenance so that the life of this pier is funded. A couple of more slides to just put into perspective what it is that we're talking about. This is a photo that I took 2 summers ago, actually, looking south towards the lake. And I don't know if, okay, there, I can use my cursor. In the background, you can see the existing fishing pier. We left that in the rendering for scale and bulk. But in the foreground, you can see the proposed fishing pier. You can see the gangway, and then beyond the gangway, you can see the beginnings of the octagonal fishing platform. And the fishing platform would be ADA compliant. You can see the lower railing. Those are spaced about the perimeter of the pier to provide for accessible fishing opportunities. This is a view from the south shore looking north, and again, you can see the higher and lower sections of the railing, again, to promote accessible fishing opportunities. The overall bulk of the pier now without the gazebo. I think it's a much less impactful than earlier designs. Proposed budget, we have the engineering, permitting, and construction budgets. Overall cost is expected to be just less than $300,000. And it's my understanding from prior discussions that the design and permitting piece that the city has committed to, and that's in the $43,000 range. It's my understanding that the VIA would be responsible for the bidding, construction phase and inspection services, as well as the construction cost. And assuming that we start moving following this meeting, our tentative schedule would be construction in October of this year, and that's predicated on a 9-month or so permitting process with the Army Corps and DENREC. And with that, I'll be
Mayor, may I ask a quick?
happy to answer any questions.
Just to be clear, I'm not necessarily, I'm sort of neutral on this, but did you say the city will pay the $43,700 design and permitting, or that's also the VIA?
The design and permitting, it's my understanding that the city has been considering payment of, and I keep looking at Evan because he's the one I've been talking with about it. It's my understanding the city is considering funding that piece. There was a motion made at the last presentation that I provided a year ago that the city would take the project as far as design, and then construction phase would be the responsibility of the VIA. And so that was, in my mind, was the break point. So basically, a construction-ready project for the VIA to do with as their planning.
Okay, so I wasn't yet on the board, so maybe someone could explain.
Let me get Evan. Would you confirm that? Because that's my recollection also, but let's confirm.
Sure. So the last time this was introduced and discussed, I think it was the board's intent to wrap up the design of the project, and then once design was complete, completely turn the project over to the VIA and have the rest of the project be their responsibility. Responsibility being permitting, preparing all the final construction documents, preparing the bidding documents, actually going through the bidding process, and then ultimately awarding, a contract. We have since met with the VIA. We also met with the donor. The donor's desire is to really just fund the construction of the pier because, as you see, the construction itself is $209,000. They are contributing $250,000, and they really want to make sure that at least $50,000 is put into some type of account that can earn interest that can be used for future maintenance of the pier. And so knowing that we have had Bob and a structural engineer take a look at the dock, know that it has to be replaced. Obviously, this is a city asset. It's a city responsibility to do something with this pier. I personally think it makes sense to proceed with the design and at least get the VIA and the donor to the point of, really awarding a contract to a company that would perform the work. And then at that point, we would just turn the cost and the rest of the project over to the VIA. So that's sort of what we've been talking about internally, just with the VIA, with Bob, with Henry, and then also with the donor too. So,
I mean, it does have the city bearing some of the risk in case if the VIA were to pull out for whatever the reason, the city would have then designed a fishing pier larger than we probably otherwise ever would have considered had the city not had this
sure.
offer from the VIA. And I mean, it's sort of like visions of the canal boat dock. The design of that was paid for by the city and was completely separate from the $1.3 million contract price of the dock. I'm not saying this is going to happen here, but I just like to know if we've officially agreed to pay almost, and some of it's already been spent, I assume, of that $43,700.
Correct.
Like
yes. Yep.
So do we need to officially approve that, or we're just going to hope it goes well?
Evan, what is your expectation that at the next voting meeting that we would entertain this and vote to devote a certain amount of money to it?
So one of the things that we'll absolutely have to do is develop some type of MOU with the VIA. So we need to talk a little bit about that because we need to figure out sort of how the funding piece would work. But I think we could certainly do that as, bring something back at a future meeting for consideration amongst the board.
Well, I appreciate because, we need to be mindful because the city ended up on the hook for an MOU that was never repaid by a nonprofit. I'm not saying, I'm not alleging that the VIA is going to behave in the same way as the nonprofit, which basically disbanded, cut and ran. But yeah, so thanks for clarifying that.
Thank you. Bob, go ahead and continue there, buddy.
That concludes my presentation, Mayor.
Well, go back to that last slide.
I'm here
once-
to
one
answer
more
any
time.
questions.
Mayor?
Let me introduce something because I was at the one meeting with the donor. And I don't know that we talked about the material. We had talked in private with him about wood versus treated wood, like in the boardwalk, versus composite. And I know the answer, but do you want to share with the answer?
Certainly, Mayor. And again, I apologize. I wasn't sure the level of detail that I should get into, so that, very good question. The bids, we actually received 2 bids from this contractor, and for wood decking, for a completely wood pier, timber piling, the budget was $210,000, $209,750. We asked for an add to upgrade from the marine grade wood decking, railing, support and such to composite material. And that add was round numbers, $45,000 additional. And in talking with the donor, he made the comment that his deck in the neighborhood where he lives on the water, and he said that it's been there 20 years and he doesn't even treat it, and the wood has lasted and is still in great and serviceable condition. What I will say, and I did make note of this in a prior presentation, that the city's experience, at least with the boardwalk, is that a board out on the boardwalk will last about 7 years before it has to be replaced. It's a little different environment than the fishing pier is with the amount of traffic that it gets. Plus, it is directly in the it's directly in the eyesight of the ocean and the elements that are present in the ocean block. This pier is somewhat protected from that, and whether it's worth another $45,000 to put in decking that's going to last 30 years, I don't know whether the cost is worth the benefit.
Well, so again, the donor, we debated this and he debated it, and it was him that came up with, let's stick with the typical treated lumber and have the maintenance, the escrow monies for maintenance. So,
Correct. His comment, if I remember correctly, was that his donation is for $250,000 with a desire for a $50,000 maintenance escrow. If the group, whoever that may wind up being in the end, decides that composite decking or a gazebo or electric or other amenities that are beyond just a fishing pier, that other funding would need to take place. And you were also in that meeting with the VIA where there was discussions about possible funding mechanisms and donation type fundraisers and sort of things, to kind of taking some of the comments from the commissioners from our last meeting. But at this point, my understanding is we're going with a timber structure without any composites.
All right, so.
And Mayor, if I may,
yeah,
do you
go
mind? I did also want to add, just based on Commissioner Good's comment, the donor is very serious. He really has great memories of this dock and wants to make sure that it's preserved for future generations, especially with the maintenance in perpetuity.
Well, so I think the correct path forward would be to create a draft MOU to bring in front of us with all the details so that we can commit to it and commit to furnishing whatever amount of money we determine.
Mayor?
Commissioner Saunders.
I apologize, I wasn't here for prior meetings, but I'm curious as to why we're taking a smaller pier that has been there for many, many years and making it into this sort of grandiose type of thing. Why aren't we just replacing the existing pier as it is?
The reason why we're replacing it in a slightly different location and orientation is to improve the fishing opportunities for the children, the teenagers, young adults that actually use the pier. Let me go back into the beginning of the slide presentation. Unfortunately, I don't have a photo of the Lake Gerar Bridge before it was replaced in the 2000s. But my understanding is when the bridge was replaced, the pier, the fishing pier and the gangway that connected the north and south sides of the lake through the pier, all of that decking and pier was to be demolished as part of the bridge replacement. And the VIA successfully convinced the Board of Commissioners at that time to at least retain the fishing pier itself and the north gangway. And it's my understanding that the original dock was, in its current location, was farther from the bridge. And with the new larger bridge, it essentially landlocked. It made the easterly side of the pier unusable for fishing, whereas before you were able to fish in between the pilings and whatnot that the original bridge was constructed from. So the point of moving the bridge, moving the pier, and changing its geometry is an effort to restore those lost opportunities.
My fear is I have friends that live near Silver Lake, and they all tell stories of wedding parties showing up at their house and wanting to go out in their gazebos, have pictures taken. And I fear that here, they're making it a larger shape and making it more open and public, that it'll lose its charm as a small children's fishing pier.
Yeah, I can't comment on the philosophical part, only the technical. I apologize.
That's all. Thank you.
Mayor,
Yes, ma'am.
I appreciate all the planning that's gone into this, but I really am concerned based on walking by that fishing pier often twice a day in the peak season when it's used at all, from May to October. It's an underutilized resource in its current iteration we have right now. So I'm not sure, what are we trying to achieve? Why are we assuming that there's this, this demand for fishing on both sides when the one side's been sufficient? Now, I don't suppose the VIA donor would be interested in, the VIA donor, I know you've already done a lot of, drawings and things, but they could fully fund a replacement in the, existing size. And, especially if they want to cut costs by not using the composite, if this has an expected lifespan of 20 years, maybe 25, I'm looking at something that isn't currently used in its current dimensions all that much. So why, we always seem to have these grandiose, lofty ambitions, and it's just we just face escalating costs and spending on a lot of these things.
Well, again, I'd like to bring this to a close. What I'd like to do again is let's bring forward a draft MOU with all the details on there and more accurate drawings perhaps for us to look at, and then we'll take it to a vote. Because interestingly, we have 3 new commissioners here since it was first proposed, right? So we obviously want to, give them an opportunity to voice their opinion. Commissioner Thier?
I think, go ahead.
I just have a quick question. What's the width of the platform?
The diameter?
How wide across is it? When they mentioned that it was like 1,200 square feet, it seemed like it's too big. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah.
So each Each side is 16 feet. So I apologize, I don't have the precise dimensions for you. But the overall dimensions of that pier, I'm going to say are in the 30 feet at its widest point.
That's what I thought, it was like about 30 feet.
Yeah.
Well, I was doing the math and, because I just felt like it couldn't be 1,200 feet unless that's including the, maybe the walkway or something, but it's like, that's like 700 square feet.
Yeah, the 1,200 feet that I referenced in a prior presentation included the gangway.
Okay. all
Yes,
right.
sir.
So the platform, I think, is
Yes, sir.
probably comparable to what the other one was.
It is larger, but
But
not
not-
significantly.
Yeah, not too much. Okay.
Well, I've been following this from the beginning, and I certainly don't remember a 30-foot or plus or minus diameter. So that actually gives me a little pause also that the thing is mushroomed from what I recall
Sure.
of the original design.
It's actually no larger, Mayor. The pier itself, each side of the octagon was always 16 feet. But if you remember, there was a gazebo in the center that consumed a lot of that open space. And, you know, the kind of the point of the larger was for, you know, children casting and, you know, giving space, you know, for, but,
We may want to entertain options for sizes or something,
Sure.
but it would be nice to move
And-
this along at the next meeting
and Mayor, considering that the quote that we received for what you see on the screen is more than the donor's budget, systematically reducing the structure to meet the available funding is definitely prudent,
prudent.
prudent
Yeah,
in order.
all right. Any further questions by the commissioners?
Mayor,
Yes,
would-
ma'am.
would there
Oh,
be
Commissioner
support?
Good.
Thank you. Would there be support maybe to have one of the options be, which would allow the VIA to fund this fully, to replicate the current footprint, which, as I said, I literally occasionally see 1, 2, or 3 individuals attempting to fish. It's typically like a parent, you know, helping a child. Different combinations. Occasionally teenagers are just sort of standing there looking for whatever, turtles or whatever other wildlife. So I'd like that, at least to consider that, because that's a means to not only keep it under the VIA donors, you know, budget, but maybe it would allow for this composite to be part of the donation to the city, which would give it another 10, 15 years of useful life.
Well, I think, again, we'll come up with an MOU, drafted some options for sizes, and frankly, I think we should go back to the donor and see if he had, you know, I'm very comfortable with him personalizing this deck, if you will, and coming up with his own design or something, or octagon instead of a rectangle. Did you have?
Mayor, just
Commissioner?
a question. We've experienced MOUs previous for the commission and other donors, which are problematic at best. And I'm curious to know if we made a decision as to whether this MOU would be with the VIA, with the donor, or would it, is there a real need for an MOU? We're just accepting a cash donation in payment for these bills, and would they be billed directly to the VIA, et cetera? Again, I think the time of an attorney or whomever devised in developing an MOU, which we've been told on many times is not worth the paper it's written on, you know, is there a simpler way to do this? And I also agree that, you know, the character of Lake Gerar, to maintain it with a simpler fishing bridge or what have you, you know, talking about the pier didn't diminish, the bridge got bigger when we rebuilt the bridge. So that did almost cut off one complete side of it for usefulness, and we took off the south leg of it also. So I think a little bit of a maintaining the characters, which many of us are very working towards to maintain the character, and that's what brings a lot of us to Rehoboth Beach is the character, is to take a look at this. But again, the mechanics of an MOU versus just somebody paying the bills for it. I think maybe a simpler way and cleaner way to do it. If there's 25,000 in there or what have you for maintenance, maybe that is what needs to be prescribed as to how that money is managed and if it's invested or what have you. But I think to keep it as KISS as possible would be the better way to approach this.
Well, Max heard that, Evan heard that, Taylor heard that, so.
That doesn't mean they're going to do anything, but
we
they've
don't-
heard it.
So we don't have any thing formulated, so that's a good guidance for us. I would like to keep this momentum going, though, so that we are doing something.
But
Go ahead.
if I may also caution that as we offer redesign or reworking, that clock is running and the cost is also increasing in that regards. If we ask for a redesign in that manner, we appreciate your involvement in this, but I'm sure it's not free. So that investment must be maintained or understood as to go forward on it.
Well, I will say, Commissioner Gossett, we have been at the conceptual phase really through this entire process. We have resisted the urge to go to design development and actually start constructing drawings, preparing drawings, simply because the target continues to move.
You've dealt with us before, that's why.
There's multiple parties involved.
Mayor, just to follow up
Yes,
with it.
Suzanne?
No, I'm glad. It seemed this is timely. We've caught you in time. And I think because you see that there are various opinions about the scale of this project, there should be no more resources thrown at it until Mr. Walton and others have figured out. And yes, the Canal Boat Dock memorandum of understanding, if we are so ridiculous that we repeat that terrible mistake, which, by the way, in February of 2020, some citizens like myself and at least one commissioner she is no longer serving, tried to warn everybody, that now the nonprofit has no incentive to fundraise. It would be analogous to the donor has no incentive to pony up more money if the city is on the hook for, all the design and everything else. So, I hope we've caught it in time and the city can clarify, we can decide our preferences either on February 21st or, or as soon as possible before continuing down this road, which is almost an open-ended city budget provided to you for design,
Right, thank you. I'd like to go to the members of the public, if that's all right. Is there anybody that would like to speak? Come forward. I'd like you to state your name and then relationship to the city, if you would.
Sure, my
And-
name is-
And any group you're affiliated
Yep,
with.
Rick Hardy, and I am here on behalf of the Save Our Lakes Alliance, nonprofit that's been working with the city now 20 years. So we are very concerned about this new pier for a couple of reasons: size, purpose, and kind of environmental impact. We approve, or we really like what the VIA is doing in this and wanting to replace the pier. It's a good idea. The old pier has creosote pilings, so that environmentally is not good. But when I run this through a calculator, an octagon calculator, sorry, the width of this pier actually ends up being 41.8 feet wide. So that's the longest diameter you can get between point to point. And it is 1,236 square feet with that calculator. The current pier is 50 feet by 14 and a half feet, and it's 725 square feet. So it's a big, and I'm not including the walkway. The walkway, 30 foot, is the exact same length as the walkway we have today. It might be a little wider, but I think it's about the same. So, we are looking at, this is now going to stick out in the lake much further. It's, as you drive by the bridge today, you just see the beauty of the lake, the woods in the background, fishing pier tucked away there. And to your point, Suzanne, I test the water every week in these lakes, and I often only see a few people on this dock. But I agree with what the VIA would like to do. So when we look at the size of this, the size and scale, it is really bigger than we can build a house on a 50 by 100 lot wide, right? Because it's 41.8 feet long. 2 Hummers could sit on this dock and spin. if the calculations are right. So I would just, if this 16 feet is correct. The environmental impact, you're covering more of the water space. And we know we're treating this lake quite heavily already to reduce the algae levels, things like that. This is actually going to reduce airflow on the surface. So it could have an environmental impact as well. I think the way it's designed could also, if you've walked by this pier, there's often a carpet of algae that float during the summer. They are probably going to get stuck between the bridge and the pier, so it will just be green mats of algae, just assuming for a minute. Again, testing the water. The biggest fish that are caught here are generally under the bridge during the summer because the lake's too warm. So it's right beside there. And we actually see people catching fish and taking them to their personal lakes. So we are opposed to the design, but we would like to see this a much more compact design, more of a fishing pier. Like I said, with the square footage, most of this isn't able to be used for fishing. So we would like something more compact, more functional, and in agreement with the nature.
Go ahead. Are you finished?
Yes, thank
right.
you for your
Wait,
consideration.
thank you. And again, we're acknowledging that we got your letter.
Thank you.
Very good. Anybody else like to speak? Come ahead. Your name and relationship to the city?
Mike Fisher, I own a unit at the Henlopen condominiums. I'm also the treasurer on the council there.
Are you the new appointee to the mixed-use task force?
I
Very,
am.
very good. Welcome.
Thank you. I go about it from a different way. If I understand the math, the current design would be asking $100,000 in the city. I agree that might be a little high. Why don't you take it from another side and just say, what would you spend? Is it zero in addition to what the donor is giving? Is it 10,000 at 50,000? And then tell the design company, bring it down to that level, right?
Thank you, Michael. Anybody else? Thank you very much. So I think we have a path forward. If everybody's okay with it, we'll bring. Sorry about that. I know we were hoping to get a little further, but
No, it's all good.
we've all got.
We'll continue to hold. We have other things to do.
All right, very good. Thank you very much.
Mayor, you don't want to maybe take a vote as to the maximum we want to spend on design and
Not
whatever,
here. Not here.
permitting at this time?
Let's do it when we have a full complement.
Okay.
Thank you very much. With that, next item of business is status update from EDIS and the City Public Works Director on the construction of the Rehoboth Beach Patrol headquarters and restroom facility. Yep, and you can take control of the machine if you like.
Hey, Evan, JB also has a video he would like to play that he's got on a stick. Okay. Okay. So- Thanks all. Mayor and Commissioners, a few months ago, J.D. Bartlett from EDIS gave an update about the status of the Baltimore Beach Patrol, and he's here again today to give a further status.
Good afternoon. Great to see everyone again. Commissioner Saunders, this is, I think, the first time I've met you. Great to be here today. So I wanted to, I actually wanted to start by playing a video for the group. One of the big things for me, just thinking about myself as a visitor of Rehoboth Beach with my family, is the ability for the Beach Patrol to improve the services that they provide to us. And I think in hearing a lot about the momentum when the project was in its early conception, there's a lot of talk about the enhanced ability for the Beach Patrol to service the community. So once the floor was poured on the second floor, I went up there and shot a video from what will be the observation deck just outside of the headquarters. So I just wanted to share that. It's going to look from the north view down the beach to the south. Let me start that over. Don't want a new. And again, I just, I commend the city for taking this step to build this facility, because I just think about the amount of people that could be viewed from what you see on the screen here. It's incredible. So I wanted to share. I know you have not had the opportunity to be in that vantage point yet, but I thought it was important to share that today. So I was here back in, I'm going to say October, giving an update. So I wanted to sort of, kind of take a step off of that, give you updates compared to where we were at the time. We always start off with a blurb about communication. We continue to work closely with the neighbors, hear their concerns, and accommodate as possible based on the work and communicating the work that's ahead. Continuation on the safety performance. Currently, the general contractor has had no safety-related incidents on the project, so I'm happy to report that stayed the same from previous. And in terms of schedule progress, this is sort of a trend to sort of show how the schedule's progressed over time, dating back to November of '23. When I was here in October, we had about 8 weeks of buffer before the completion date between when the contractor felt they would be done and when we'd like to see completion. The most recent update, January 9th, we're showing general contractor completion date in mid-April, and that really reduced that to a 5-week period. And I did want to explain that. I'm sure you all saw that in the packet. Certainly the holidays were a challenge, particularly with the wind speeds that we were experiencing. And then that was followed by an intense snowstorm, as you all know. So we did lose a little bit of the contingency time. So I just wanted to point that out. But at this point, we do not feel that the completion date of May 16th is at risk. So I'm happy to report that. And I introduced a sort of a method for the city to evaluate progress and sort of identify some key milestones. And I wanted to kind of explain what I've charted here. So there's a dotted line on the items that are complete that shows where we landed versus where we were targeting. And I believe in the last meeting, there was questions about the floor slab. I had expressed the urgency behind getting that floor slab in place. Because it really opens the door for us to be working on both levels, or the general contractor to be working on both levels. So with that, today, as an example, we have 30 construction workers working on the site right now. So it speaks to on a tight site, 30 people is a lot, but not when you're able to have mechanical, electrical, and plumbing work happening on the lower level, while the framing and sheathing and drying in the second floor is happening on the second level. So good update there, that's been effective. We were trending on having that second floor slab poured by December 1st. That was a milestone that I expressed as urgent. That ended up being completed before Thanksgiving. And then, as I mentioned, we ran into a little bit of a lull with the wind speeds and being able to set trusses. So you can see that the second floor exterior framing and sheathing had drifted, but I'm happy to report that in terms of roof framing complete, 2 lines below that, they're just about complete with that today, as of my walkthrough. Key items upcoming, we have the second floor weather barrier. That allows them to really put sensitive electronics and equipment that can't be exposed to weather today up on the second floor. It also allows finishing work to start occurring on the first floor. So again, I think that compounding ability to access both floors and work in both places is the key to the project staying on timeline. A couple other highlights, HVAC equipment. This particular design has the equipment on the second floor. that equipment had to be placed in the room before the framing was done. So we have some things that would typically happen after framing are already in progress, so I thought that was worth noting as well. Great, I'm very happy with the general contractor's ability to have multiple trades on the site working at the same time. I think that's been, tremendous in what's occurred over the last few weeks. I was there. If you haven't driven down Baltimore Avenue, you can really get the feel of the building right now. So it's great to see the progress. I did include some photos that I thought would provide some insight. So this was back, the one on the left is October, when I was here before presenting, or just before I was here. And you can see the amount of work that's occurred on the second floor since that slab was poured just before Thanksgiving. And then working from left to right, the bottom left I thought was an interesting photo to share because this is not a frequent construction technique that you see. With a poured concrete floor, I received questions from the city. We've received questions from other contractors just wondering how that was going to happen. And you can sort of see the formwork that's occurring in that photo that was built in place to support the concrete pour. So I wanted to highlight that. Then you can see this is right after the concrete pour. The next picture, the one above that on the top there, this one here, that is the main entrance into the Beach Patrol from Baltimore, a future entrance. I had mentioned mechanical equipment. You can see it's wrapped up and being stored weather tight right now, but again, had to be in place before the framing occurred. And this was a picture here just in the early part of December that showed the framing in progress. I thought this was a good vantage point as well. And more to the mechanical, electrical, plumbing work that's taking place indoors on the first floor. You can see a lot of the plumbing is taking place. When we talked about the electrical work and the transformer, you can see just the amount of work that went into prepping that slab and the rough ends down in the lower left. And again, since the photos were taken, they've began duct work this week on the lower level, so things are really moving along. I'd like to move on to review of recently approved change orders that the city has approved for the general contractor. The first one, change order 18 and 19. This was additional banners on the project perimeter fencing. If it's not clear, we've been using those banners, and the city has been, to communicate to the public. So there was an opportunity to enhance that communication. So there were 2 change orders related to city requested additional banners that the general contractor provided. And you can see the amounts there of $1,989 and $693. Change order 20, this was an unforeseen condition. The permanent form material, or the temporary form material that was going to be used to form the backside of the grade beam along the boardwalk, it became a difficult challenge with the distance between that grade beam and the boardwalk. So this was permanent form material that had to be installed in order to not disrupt the boardwalk proper as part of the construction. That added $2,538. Change order 22. This was a design-related change order. The design design team added additional trench drains. So at the openings to the ground floor rooms, changing rooms, bathrooms, they added trench drains as a way to prevent water infiltration. This added $30,700. Change order 23. Again, this was a design change. This improved detailing to the concrete reinforcement at the stormwater pipe penetration. So there's a large stormwater line that penetrates the seawall at the front of the Beach Patrol. And the detailing enhanced the how secure that will be in the event of a storm and storm surge that could impact that penetration. So that added $6,566. Change order number 24. This was an unforeseen condition related to an existing sewer line that we knew was there, but the elevation was unknown. During construction, it was determined that there was a conflict between that sewer line elevation and elevation of the footer that needed to go in for the retaining wall. That had resulted in a change order of $7,434. Next, design change order number 25. During the removal of the north sidewalk, there was an existing planter bed that was assumed to have a footer, like you'd typically see for a retaining wall. This planter did not, so the construction could not tie in properly. So this was a change order of $9,931 that allowed the existing, or the proposed sidewalk to tie into that existing retaining wall / curb. A few pending change orders. This has been a question in the last two meetings, so I wanted to make sure we were addressing that. So there are two potential change orders that are in conversation. One is change order number 12, and this is related to soil spoils that were required to be removed by DNREC. This is in conversation. It's been in conversation. There's a discrepancy between what was in contract and what's included in the proposal, so we will continue to vet that with the general contractor until the city is satisfied. And then the next one is a change order number 21. This is related to demolition of underground conduit below the existing transformer. And ultimately, when the transformer was removed, Delmarva Power had a position in terms of what condition it was going to be in when they came back to tie the power back in and re-energize. So this was done as a time and material ticket. We're still waiting on that to be submitted, so that's why that's not included for approval at this time. I did want to also touch on previously approved change orders. There's a list here. I don't want to read these. These are items that have been presented at previous commission meetings. And lastly, potential change orders that will not be approved. These were items that were submitted that will not be approved. Items 2, 3, and number 26.
Mayor, before we go further, may I ask a question? Yeah, I appreciate this. I'm a little disappointed because, at the presentation, I guess it was in October after you provided a tour to me and other people of the site. I'm looking at the 6 change orders. Well, it's actually 7 change orders. One is lumped together that are termed recently approved. With the exception of those banners that I think the city decided it needed because people were complaining about the visibility and that the demarcation between the site and the boardwalk and the sidewalk was poorly lit or potentially hazardous. And with the exception of this sewer line where you're saying you had no idea of its location. But to me, a lot of the other change orders should be on you, the contractor. Things like, if you didn't foresee that you need trench drains, if you're talking, in the area that they turn out to be needed, that's $30,700 just like that. I feel like, is there going to be some cost sharing? I know you've built in some overruns, but this city, tries to avoid these things. I feel as if, with the exception of change orders 18 and 19 and 24, among these two, what you're terming recently approved change orders, these should not require the city to keep writing more checks to you.
So a few things, if I may, just to clarify. So the sewer line, we did know there was a sewer line there. The exact depth, if you recall my previous presentations, is not able to be determined to an exact science with technology that's available today. So the conflict between elevations, the option were to relocate the footer or relocate the sewer line. So this was more advantageous to the city at that point. The trench drains was a design change. So I want to be clear also that EDiS is not the contractor. We're here overseeing the interaction and the execution of the contract. So this need for trench drains is not a code requirement. It is a preference. It's a choice. It's going to make it easier for the city to maintain in the event of a heavy rain, when you make it a deluge of rain that results in water spilling into a bathroom or a changing room, this sort of helps improve that.
Were you notified by the city way after the contract was signed? And, you know, back on December 18th, this was approved, that they all of a sudden realized they need these trench drains, $30,700 to protect ground level spaces. To me, this should have been an integral part of the design, and I don't know. It just strikes me that there's been a lot of these change orders, some of which seemed, you know, were things that should have been foreseen. It started, as you know all too well, that no one thought to dig more than, like, you know, a toddler could down below the site, and didn't realize that an old swimming pool, concrete pieces were under there. So that was like something crazy, like 100,000 extra in drilling and piling, driving, and all that.
So I do want to correct just one thing about that statement. There were geotechnical engineers on site prior to construction. They did borings down to 30 feet. So there was exploratory work done by the city prior to construction as it relates to the debris that were discovered.
But they missed all of it somehow? I mean, they didn't discover it until after you know, broken ground and were trying to drive in the pilings.
That's correct.
They
That's
missed
right.
they missed all of those pieces of the old Sands hotel pool. Great. All right.
Yes, that's correct.
Well, I think with the you're saying a design change for these trench drains, you know, we're talking about 60,000 of these orders, right? Of which I will immediately deduct about 10,000 because the city did request, nicer billboards or whatever to warn people. That was a minor amount of money, and I certainly would take off, where you knew, I don't know, in some of them, but these trench drains are a disappointment to me. That's all on the city. Where, should have been
Did you have
part of
something to add, Henry?
the plan.
Yeah, Commissioner, regarding the trench drains, JD and Roger from EDIS came with this to me several months ago. And with the suggestion, we also met with the architect. Like JD said, it wasn't required by code, but going forward would be a good idea for, in case of large rains, for both the beach patrol and visitors. And I made the determination that it was definitely worth that money. And eventually, again, this is a few months ago, but it takes time for when the determination is made. They normally have a rough idea of how much it would cost. I think you guys were pretty much spot on with the cost, saying it'd be about $35,000. And I still believe this is a very good addition to do.
Fair enough. But going forward, since I know the HVAC is in place, the workers are inside, thank goodness, in these temperatures. But are you hopeful we won't have, just this endless stream of change orders we've had on this project? Like, do you think maybe, there won't be this huge unexpected extra cost to the sinks or whatever it is?
So we have an obligation to the city by way of our contract to identify items that could benefit the city, and that's our role. For record, contractually we have no benefit. So the higher the contract goes, our contract does not change as our role here. So I did want to point that out. But in terms of the trench drains, I ran facilities at a university for close to 10 years. And during that time, I really became conscious of items that may come up to become an owner issue. And as the design progressed, and we look at the grade there, it became a concern that my project manager presented. And with my facilities background, I know that installing this now is way more cost effective than installing this in 5, 10, even 15 years as an upgrade. So what I would say too in terms of things that we're evaluating, there is a difference between a design error and a design omission. So I want to take a point and talk through that, if I may. A design error is when the design team designs something that's incorrect, that has to be redone, that was missing, and is causing some other things to change. An omission is when something is being value added to a contract, and in this case, the trench drain is a value add, and contractually with a design team, that is significant. They didn't make a mistake on something that was code required. I think they omitted something that could benefit the owner. And that's, we're talking about the trench drain one because that's the one you've highlighted. It's definitely the largest of these. So to say there's going to be no more change orders would not be reasonable. I think during construction, there are some other steps that are going to take place. We have to review locations of receptacles as opposed to the furniture that the city is going to buy. So there are things like that still have to be reviewed in the field. And again, this is not atypical. This is a typical approach, which is why there are contingencies, which I'd like to hit on the next slide. But to say there will be no change orders that's not practical with the construction of a municipal building.
Go ahead to the next slide. if
Okay.
you would.
Okay, general contractor status. So at the top is shown the original, and I really like to concentrate on the current contract total at $5,649,977. Of that, there are $201,449 in owner contingencies for minor items like I had mentioned, additional receptacles, additional data outlets that are much more cost-effective to install while the walls are open than after the drywall's in place. And in addition to that, there are $48,539 in owner allowances that remain for the city's use as well. Any questions on overall?
Mayor, if I could.
Commissioner there?
Thank you. I'm looking at the presentation from November 4. Our meeting was on November 4. And the current contract total then was $5,550,000. The current one's $5,649,000, so about, let's say, $100K. The change orders that you included total up to maybe 60. What's the other 44, or am I not understanding the math?
I will have to confirm that, and I can do that.
Okay. If you can, if you can confirm that, get the information back to
Will do.
Henry. One last question. I kind of want to just going to back up to the schedule, so I, kind of apologize here. We've lost, the GC is, communicating that they've lost 3 weeks since the last update. So I've got about 5 weeks worth of contingency. And I know from last time, he says April 11, you have your own schedule, which pushes that a little bit further. But just refresh my memory, when the contractor's date of April 11th, where does that align on your schedule? Is that the punch list walkthrough, or is that the HV equipment startup, or
Substantial completion.
substantial completion?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so you're basically now, and again, I'd have to look and see what it was several months ago, but right now you're aligned with the contractor of April 11, okay? So punch list walkthrough, city moving to 510. So if we lose another week or lose another 2 weeks, does that mean that your 510, we're going to push back a week? Instead of 510, will be 517. If it's 2 weeks, we're 524?
No, so right now, if we lose a week, that would put us at April 18th.
Okay, but let me ask my question a different way. So
Sure.
site work substantially complete at 4/11. Clearly, there are things that need to be done, right? So we need startup, and I'm just reading through your list. Startup, punch list, final inspection, we move in on the 10th. So based on your date and the contractor's date of substantially complete on April 11th, if you lose another week, are we not going to be able to move in until, instead of 5/10, 5/17?
I think one point to clarify, let me go to that page. So the site work substantially complete is not the building substantially complete. That's a little bit of confusion that I'll clarify on future presentations. But substantially complete is when the owner is able to move in. So right now, that 5/10 date is quote unquote substantially complete. And when I believe that the building needs to be substantially complete in order for the city to have an appropriate amount of time to get moved in and acclimated. And again, I think, the contract completion date allows till May 16. I'm pushing that back a little bit and saying, I really want to see the building available for move-in on 5/10 so that the staff's able to get acclimated, they're able to understand how the systems work. If there's any items of concern, the contractor has the ability to address those before the building goes into use.
Okay, so if we lose another week or another 2 weeks, right, remaining schedule contingency, or we've got 5 weeks, we lose another 2 weeks, we're still going to be able to move in on May 10th. Let me just keep it
Correct.
that simple. Okay.
Correct.
And I'll look to Mr. Tedder. You're comfortable that if we don't get this building until May 10th, you'll be able to move in?
Yes. Ultimately, in discussions with the beach patrol captain, really the main piece that we really need to move into is the bottom level, which they are working on currently. But that's where we would have our EMT station and the restrooms, all of that. So yes, I'm confident that would work for us. But my understanding is if we got down to 0 contingency, we'd still be moving in the 10th, right?
So as we're projecting, you would be moving in on the 10th.
Okay. All right. And that's really my question, right? There's a lot of stuff that has to go on. My concern is if we lose more time, can we still get on the 10th, yes or no? And I think the answer I'm hearing is we could go down to 0 weeks of contingency and we still get in on the 10th. Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Mayor, if I have a question, if I may. Yes, thank you. Mr. Bartlett, a couple of questions with regards to the calendar there. The first item, the second floor slab pour, was crucial in timing. Can you determine any of those other listed items that carry the same weight, that if that didn't occur, it would put a dead stop or really impact the schedule?
Absolutely. So the building envelope weather tight on March 1st carries the same weight as that slab being in place. Being able to get the temperature controlled on the upper level is key. There's a lot of window openings at that level, so getting those windows in and getting the building airtight so they can condition is a huge milestone that allows things like paint to be installed without concerns of temporary heat and that sort of approach.
Great, thank you. And then if we could jump down to the general contract status on that, just for clarification on my part. Just looking at, it's kind of running quick and dirty. Based on the figures shown, we're about $502,998 over budget at this point. We have 2 outstanding change orders, number 12 with Denrec and number 21 with Delmarva Power. Can you estimate any, back of the envelope figure of what those might be?
Yeah, the soils removal was submitted in the $12,000 range. We don't believe that that's anywhere near the city's responsibility, if any. So we've rejected it and are awaiting additional information. I think it's more in the $5,000 range.
Okay.
And then item 21 was done as a time and material ticket. So that's the most efficient when we have eyes on the sky and we're able to identify who's there, how long they worked, and track that down to the minute. So I believe that's going to be in the $5,000 range at max.
Okay. And at our July 23rd meeting, you provided us with a change lot master tracking that carried us up through number 16 change order. Would it be possible to have that updated in the next meeting, or you could supply it to the city manager?
Sure, absolutely. And in that, I can clarify the question that Commissioner Thayer had.
Great, thank you.
Sure. All right, final item, if there's no further questions, topping off ceremony. This is an opportunity to kind of pause and celebrate the highest point being applied to the building. So that's currently scheduled for Tuesday at 1 p.m. On the 21st. So looking forward to seeing many of you there. And at this point, I want to turn it over for any questions that you may have.
Any further questions among the commissioners? If not, any members of the public have any questions? If not, thank you very much. Would you be sure to send your PowerPoint to Ann Womack so that we can have a copy of it?
I believe she has it. She has it already.
Okay, okay. All righty, we're going to get along to a new business. There's just 2 items of new business. The next item is consider adoption of a resolution recommending the reappointment of the Honorable Renee L. Bennett to a new 2-year term as Alderman of the City of Rehoboth Beach. We have the Honorable Renee L. Bennett here. If you would just wave your hand, jiggle it. There you go. Thank you. We have a resolution in front of us, also embedded in the agenda, that essentially is a resolution that where we are recommending, the Board of Commissioners is considering recommending the reappointment of the Honorable Renee L. Bennett as Alderman of the City of Rehoboth Beach. To expedite this, I'm going to read just a portion of the resolution on lines 69 down. Says, whereas the Honorable Renee L. Bennett's 5th term as Alderman of the City of Rehoboth Beach expires on March 29, 2025, and whereas 21A subsection B of the city charter requires that, quote, not less than 30 days prior to the expiration date of an alderman's term, the commissioners of Rehoboth Beach shall by majority vote determine whether or not to recommend reappointment of the alderman for an additional term, unquote, and whereas section 21A subsection C of the city charter provides that the alderman shall serve a 2-year term and shall remain in office until either reappointed or a successor is duly qualified. And therefore, the motion would read something like the commissioners recommend that the Honorable Renee L. Bennett be recommended to the governor for reappointment to serve in Alderman Court 37 as Alderman of the City of Rehoboth Beach for another 2-year term. Are there any questions anybody has about this in our process? Commissioner?
Another question, I just want to point out that Judge Bennett has sworn all of us in, and we're still here, so she must be good at her job.
That's a good signal. Well, I would then entertain a motion as noted.
So moved.
Oh, so I think that I'm going to adjust the motion, just to,
Start off here.
Yep.
just motion to adopt the resolution as drafted. This would be sufficient.
Motion to adopt the resolution as drafted.
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Patrick Gossett and a second by Commissioner Bunky Marker to adopt the motion in front of us as read. Is there any further discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? I hear none, and it is, your reappointment is approved. I think the next step is, this has to go in front,
Well, the next step is we need a new governor, and then the next new governor needs to move that forward. So that'll happen Tuesday.
Governor Myers will, yep. Very good. Congratulations, Judge. You're on board for another 2 years. And with that, we're going to move right along to the second item of new business, and that's discuss and consider awarding the landscape management services contract for year 1, management to Sposato Landscaping in the amount of $82,482.92, and award of as-needed services to both Sposato Landscaping and Sullivan's Landscaping and Maintenance. Mary Ellen?
Thank you, Mayor. Good afternoon, everybody. Excuse me. So the purpose of this agenda item is to just discuss, as the mayor just introduced the agenda item, to discuss and consider approving the annual landscaping management services contract. And also with me this afternoon is Mike Lilly, our city arborist, who is available to answer any questions specifically related to the landscaping contract, as well as any arborist-related items. The city solicited proposals from area landscaping maintenance and management companies to facilitate regular mowing, landscaping, bed preparation and maintenance, planting, trimming, pruning, installation of new landscaping, and other related services that are described in the request for proposals. For decades, the city has used outside landscaping companies to support staff with managing and maintaining city open spaces, and this RFP is consistent with its prior contracts. In the event that Sposato continues to serve the city with a high standard of quality with which it has served the city in its tenure, in addition to Sullivan's as the additional as-needed contractor during year 1, the contract could be renewed for year 2 and year 3 as provided for in the request for proposals. Work would commence immediately following the receipt of a ratified contract. So staff requests that the Board of Commissioners award the landscape management services contract for year 1 to Sposato Landscaping in the amount of $82,482.92 and award the as-needed services to both Sposato Landscaping and Sullivan Landscaping and Maintenance during year 1, and should the work be as per the contract, that the contract be renewed for year 2 and 3 as provided for in the request for proposals.
Are there any questions among the commissioners? Commissioner Saunders?
May I ask, Mary Ellen, why don't we do this in-house? Why doesn't building and maintenance do this? Or
We
not
don't-
building and maintenance, building and repair?
Grounds.
Thank you, grounds. Thank you.
Sure, we currently don't have the capacity to do that, it's my understanding. We don't have the,
Well, for $82,000, maybe you could hire somebody and have the capacity.
Even at that, I honestly don't think we could do that.
What brings my
I-
question up is, we don't seem to have any control of them. And I know Mr. Lilly has been involved in these discussions with various folks around town. They really haven't done a very good job, and yet we're asking to rehire them again.
well, two things on that, and those are good questions, Commissioners. One is we did a competitive, as a result of, I've been here for a year and 4 months, and I've heard the same, I've heard complaints on that. And as acting arborist, I was able to keep one eye on the management and landscaping contract. So I thought it was prudent to bid the landscaping contract. So that's what we did, a robust bill. We put together a request for proposals, and with the help of, is Bob still here? Bob's still here. Of our city engineer, and we put together I thought, a very good request for proposals. We got I thought, a good response. We got 3 entities that responded, and we did, as per the bid process, we did an assessment of those 3 contractors, and Sposato came up with the best proposal, as well as
Was quality an issue at all?
quality was an issue as well. Quality.
Could they possibly come in with a good rating on quality?
Well, we had a 4-panel. Excuse me. Let me just go through our 4-panel. Thanks, Bob. 4-panel review team, and that is in your packet. And
You've seen the pictures that I've seen with the trees, with the vans that weren't taking off, with the mulch that's in the lawns, with the houses, with the dents where they threw rocks up against them. Explain that.
Okay, so moving forward, so we did an evaluation, and then moving forward, Mr. Lilly will be evaluating and also managing the contract, and the planting of the trees specifically is under, well, I'll have you, Mike, could you explain that, the planting of the trees?
Can I actually add
specifically?
something before we go to that? So I did receive some communications from a resident specifically about the trees. So with this contract, with the as-needed services coming from Sullivan's, we are going to have them solely focus on trees. So Sposato typically has done a pretty good job with planting the annual flowers and mulching the beds and some finish mowing, which they'll continue to do. But Mike has extensive experience in landscaping and, of course, trees as our arborist. But I'll let him talk a little bit about his idea of management of these contracts.
Yeah, so essentially, Sposato is going to be doing the small end, maintenance-esque of the contract, so mowing, mulching, weeding, stuff like that, whereas I'd like to award the as-needed work towards Sullivan's, and that would include trees and sod and stuff like that, and they also gave a much lower price per tree or anything like that as well, so. And I'm.
You're here, Mr. Lilly, because we are the tree city, but you would never know it by our trees.
And one other thing that we do utilize Sposato on is irrigation work. So we do have various irrigation systems throughout the city, which we don't have anyone on staff to actually deal with breaks or heads or things like that. So.
Mayor, I'd like to address
Commissioner
Mr. Lilly. No, I'm really glad because you have background to determine what's needed. So I'd like to know what sort of controls do we have, though, on this as-needed services performed both by Sposato and by Sullivan's, because that's sort of open-ended at this point.
Really, it's just upon the owner, the city's request of what we, what we want to happen. What I'd like to see, especially going forward into the spring, is a lot of the invasive species of the trees. I want to remove the Bradford pears and whatnot and have them remitigated and have Sullivan start to take a bigger leap into that. And then just keep Sposato as our in-house maintenance, in other words.
I mean, my only concern is that maybe we set a maximum budget for this as-needed services, maybe $50,000. Otherwise, we could be facing, in addition to the, 89,000 with Sposato for the more routine tasks, and that also includes the irrigation you just referenced.
So this would be where, you're allocating line items in the actual budget for this work, and we can highlight that when we go through the departmental budget. For these items?
Yes, that's what, thank you, City Manager Taylor. That's, Commissioner Good, that's exactly what I was going to say. We do have a line item for contracted services, and there is an upper limit in what we can spend on that.
You don't happen to recall what that threshold is?
I believe we're asking for $115,000 off the top of my head.
Okay, if it's $115,000, of course, it exceeds the, the Sposato sort of
Yes.
routine. So, yeah, it's major money. So, yeah, well, thank you. During the, I guess, on February 10th, maybe, or will it be the?
Yeah, it'll be the next budget meeting. Yep.
Mayor, if I could, please.
Let Commissioner Thier go first, Bob.
Yes, sir. I'm not sure who I'm directing this to. Curious as to the difference in bid prices, your thoughts as to, why Sullivan's was, 25% more, and of course Bellaterra's, 100% more.
Myself personally, I think it was more so that Bellaterra at least goes for, residential pricing and luxury landscapes and something like that, whereas commercial, they're not pushing more for that. So I think they gave us a more residential price, in other words. But it was drastically higher, yeah.
How about Sullivan's?
Sullivan's, I actually wasn't a part of the panel for judges for that because of my prior employment with Bellaterra, so I had no say on any of that. But I do know they came in quite reasonable, which is why I believe we decided to use them as needed.
Any further thoughts on that?
Yes, sir. Commissioner, so I'd like to respond to your question first about the award, and then that'll help to answer your question as well. So the panel consisted of Ms. Gray, Mr. Bamforth, Ms. Lingo, and myself. Originally, Mr. Lilly was supposed to be a part of the evaluation of these proposals. We sent out a request for proposals. These weren't just bids. It wasn't low bid wins sort of thing. Although that's what wound up happening. But through Mr. Lilly's prior work history with Bellaterra, we thought that it was appropriate for him to recuse himself from the evaluation committee. And so the proposals were evaluated on 4 criteria. Profile and experience was worth 30% of their grade. Project understanding was 25%. Did they just simply repeat back to us what we asked them to do, or did they provide value-added information in their proposal? The company capability, resources, and equipment, that was worth 25%, and then the actual cost of the work was worth 20%. And so through that evaluation, Sposato and Sullivan's were very close to one another. They were within 1 point through the overall average between the 4 committee members. And it came down to the $40,000 difference in cost for the contracted services, which is how Sposato was really able to shine. And so again, as Mr. Lilly and Ms. Gray said, the city's feeling on the as-needed services and some of the concerns that have been voiced about prior work. Sposato's price and Sullivan's prices for these as-needed services, and we identified a number of them, and you'll see them on the bid tabulation that was included in the packet. Those prices were, some were high, some were low, but in general, they were within order of one another. And I think, Commissioner Thier, maybe one of the reasons why Sullivan's was so much higher than Sposato on price is because Sposato's been doing it for 20 years or more, and they know what the city as well as anybody does. And they're local, and maybe they hold it near and dear to their heart. And I do know that in speaking with Ms. Lingo during her tenure as a city arborist, she commented during the proposal process as well as during the evaluation that when the city asks Sposato to do things, oftentimes those extras get lost in their bill, and in other words, the city doesn't always get billed for the work that Sposato does. And so that there may be part of that in this proposal. We did not talk to them about their specific bid prices because they are what they are. We checked the math and went on with it from there.
Mayor.
Commissioner Gossett?
Thank you. Just on description, just for clarification, under Rehoboth Avenue, does that include the Lighthouse Circle? Okay. And also, was there any discussion with Rehoboth and Bloom with regards to what they're doing in the city and with regards to the Verrazano Park?
No, but I have had previous discussions with, thank you.
Cindy, love it, right.
With Cindy.
Okay.
And her plans are well under, her and her group's plans are well underway with the Verrazano Park, working on that park.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Commissioner, you want to say something? Go ahead.
Oh.
Just one thing I wanted to add to. So another option is Section 43 of the charter is the contract section. Part B does say that the commissioners can award the contract if they determine that there are reasons why such better services or there are better services that could be offered to the city. So, it is not a requirement that we take the lowest bid. Certainly, if you all think that we would be better served by a different vendor, we could certainly do that. We would just need to put together sort of a rationale as to why, including unsatisfactory performance, et cetera. So certainly the option does exist that we do go with Sullivan or somebody else. We don't have to go with the lowest bidder. I just wanted to put that out there.
Can I just add something to that?
Yeah,
okay.
next.
Yep, sorry.
Unfortunately, it won't be too long. No, I mean, I know that there have been some there's been mention of apparently incompetent or poorly performed work. I mean, I actually have just the opposite impression. I see the Sposato crews as a circle around the lighthouse on the median, working hard, and from what I see, often I'll be like walking at 8 o'clock in the morning east to the boardwalk, and upon my return, they're wrapping up their work or have completed it. I mean, I think they seem to work to a high standard, and now that we have just almost the reassurance now, Mr. Lilly will make the determination in part how much the services of Sullivan's will be needed for trees, which is sort of a more advanced landscaping, domain than just, mowing the grass or whatever, using the. So, I mean, I'm not unhappy about this, that they came in the lowest, because I think they have a good work ethic. I mean, I've seen them working in terrible heat at 2 or 3 in the afternoon. So I'm happy about this.
Commissioner Thier?
Yeah, I guess I'm doing math today. I'm looking at your grid, your proposal evaluation, and line 13, 10% of contingency allowance, which is 10%. Appears that the calculation is wrong for Sullivan's. You've got in there 1,100. That should probably be something like 10,000. So the total cost is probably something more like 126,000 in the first year. Are you following at least what I'm looking at here?
No, the total proposal cost listed is the sum of items 1 through 13.
Yeah, but you see on line 13, you've got, so Sposato, let's just focus on year one. Total cost for Sposato, line 13, which is a contingency, is $7,500, right?
Sure.
Year one for Sullivan's is $1,100.
Understood. Yeah,
Okay.
Understood, yeah.
So is that 116 really something more like 126?
No, sir. It is 116. They elected to provide an $1,100 contingency instead of what was requested.
Okay, so that contingency allowance is not us saying,
No, sir, that is what Sullivan's, the numbers that you see on this bid tabulation are the numbers that are taken directly from the proposal forms that we received.
okay, so help me understand what define contingency allowance for me.
Unspecified services, if we decide to call them in for a third leaf clearing, say at Grove Park, then there would be supplemental monies within the contract budget to provide additional services, if you will.
Okay, so I guess the question I really want to ask is, contract is for $82,482, period.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
That's my understanding.
And in the case of Sullivan, if we were to accept their bid, it's $116,000. So to us,
Yes, sir.
contingency is just a line item. It doesn't mean anything to us.
Correct. And that allowance, that contingency item, is essentially a shot that we took during the proposal development to understand if we ask for additional mowing or weeding or sod, some of those additional services, they would automatically be covered within the overall approved cost of the project, of the contract.
Okay, but you defined what those potentially could be.
Yes, sir, we did. There were 7 of them.
Okay, all right, great. Thank you.
Thank you very much. With that, I'd like to go to the members of the public. Does anybody have any comments on this particular topic? If not, then I would come back to the table here and entertain a motion and a second.
Mayor, I would like to make a motion to award the landscape management services contract year one to Sposato Landscaping, the amount of $82,482.92, and award the as-needed services referenced in the landscape management services RFP 1 year to both Sposato Landscaping and Sullivan's Landscaping and Maintenance, with a renewal option for year 2 and 3 of the contracts as provided for in the RFP.
I second the motion.
We got a motion by Commissioner Patrick Gossin, a second by Commissioner Suzanne Good to award the landscape management services contract year one to Sposato Landscaping in the amount of $82,482.92 and awarding the as-needed services referenced in the Landscape Management Services RFP Year 1 to both Sposato Landscaping and Sullivan's Landscaping and Maintenance, with the renewal option for Year 2 and Year 3 of the contracts as provided for in the RFP. Is there any additional discussion?
Mayor, I just want to comment that in working with, over the past years prior to staff expansion, working with Marcus from Sposato has been, he's very responsive. He knows the city, and I think moving to a different contractor, which we are not, if this vote is approved, that transition period is as costly as anything. But again, Marcus has been a very great asset to the city and knows the city. Thank you.
And for us not familiar with Marcus, can you explain?
He's the guy that always shows up. He's the manager of Sposato. He's the lead individual that handles Rehoboth Beach and some other communities as well. But he's been with Sposato since the beginning, I think.
All right, sounds good. All those, we have a motion in front of us, as noted, to award the bid to Sposato, as noted. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, and the motion's carried as is. Thank you, Bob, for being here. Thank you, Mary Ellen. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
We're going to move on to, oh, by golly, we're almost done. Commissioner announcements and comments. If you recall, last time I mentioned that Rehoboth Beach was on jeopardy, and this time CBS captured us and did a little thing on a retrospective of President Biden. It included other cities, but it did have an interview of the owner of the Febos and some of the other places. So we're getting in the news. Are there any other commissioner announcements or comments? Commissioner Gossett?
I'd just like to extend thanks to the staff and particularly Streets Department for their excellent efforts during the snowstorm. Rehoboth Beach doesn't get much snow, but they certainly handled it with great professionalism. And we may get another dusting, but they certainly do great work, and I just want to make sure that they are aware of that. We recognize that, and I've gotten several calls from residents that appreciate the services provided.
Thank you. You pass that along, Taylor. Commissioner Markert?
I just wanted to mention that I attended the Rehoboth Beach Historical Society board meeting on Monday, and just to announce that they have a new chair of the board, Roger Truitt, and he has begun, I think, attending to, and I think intends to sort of upgrade and some of the governance issues with the board. So I'm just basically saying I think it's a positive move, and we're moving in a positive direction. And I would say that the board appears to be committed to making certain changes to improve their governance.
Very good. Thank you. Did anybody over here have a comment? Commissioner Good?
Mayor, actually, Commissioner Gossett just expressed what I had planned to. I think the Streets Department did an outstanding job of snow removal, given the resources we have, which are the only level of resources that can really be justified when it's a once in every 3 to 5 year event. And as proof of that, I know, by comparison, nearby surrounding areas of the county often weren't plowed out until day 4 or 5, whereas all our streets were plowed, were dealt with at least once, I believe, within 36 hours, maybe even 24 hours. So I think we should be grateful for that. And as was the case in January of 2018 and January of 2022, when we likewise got slammed with a lot more snow than, say, Newcastle County or Philadelphia or DC, we had the problem with the sidewalks, and using City Hall as like a role model. I was elated that some business owners did manage to shovel in front of their businesses, but I know that's been a problem. It's a short-term problem, fortunately, and if we receive more snow, I do appreciate the business owners, some of whom are not even present, but clearly had hired someone to take care of the sidewalk in front of their seasonal business. It really helped. But I was the one often using the roadway to walk in many cases, as were many of you, I'm sure.
Thank you, Suzanne. With that, we'll move on to review future meeting dates. January 23rd is a Thursday at 10 a.m. That's a joint meeting between the Planning Commission, Building and Licensing, Board of Commissioners. January 31st is a Friday at 10 a.m. There are two public hearings for 330 Rehoboth Avenue and 8 Wilmington Avenue. Also January 31st in the afternoon, that's Friday at 1:30, we have FOIA and ethics training facilitated by Max Walton there, which I have set as mandatory for a lot of the commissions and boards and task force, with the caveat that if they can't make it, it's always preferred to be in person, but if they can't make it, then it's required to watch it and report to their chairs so that we're all together at the same point.
Mayor, confirm the time on that again?
Which
The FOIA training?
FOIA is at 1:30.
Thank you.
Yep. And with that, and there being no further business, I adjourn this meeting. Oh.
Citizen comment.
They keep me on board here. Is there any members of the public that would like to speak? Seeing none.
Carolyn Diefendorfer, city resident. I too want to thank Henry and the Streets Department for all their work, especially the work they did on the boardwalk. Got a text from Henry this week that he had flattened it out and walking the dog was much easier because it's not ice, it's crunchy snow, so you can walk down the boardwalk, Mayor, with your dog.
Thank you, very good.
Yeah, it was great. But it was really nice. And the one thing that I would like to see us, if not take up as and this could be, if we ever get back to committees, the Environment Committee, this is something that I'd like to see, if not a requirement, a suggestion to the businesses, is the salt. Once the salt has done its job, it needs to be swept up. It's an environmental hazard. It hurts the dog's feet. It's a problem when it looks like a full bag of salt has been put out and it just sits there. And tomorrow with the snow, with the rain, it's going to go into the drains. So, thank you.
Thank you, Carolyn. I don't know how, Henry, I don't know how you cleaned the boardwalk, but I will give you a cautionary note that several city managers ago, they took the snowplow down the boardwalk and literally scarred it and had to replace. So I don't know. Maybe a rotary brush or something would be.
Mayor, that was Mike Peterman's idea. He took the skid steer and had it just about an inch off the, at least an inch and a half off the planks, and did it very, very slowly.
So just, again, a cautionary note that we had a lot of boards to replace that were scarred from doing it. Anybody else? Dottie, you want to say anything? No. With that, there's no further business. I adjourn this meeting at 3:55 p.m. Thank you very much.
Look, I was trying to get Mary Ellen's attention.
Mary Ellen.